Good morning, Andrea. Can you hear me? Morning, Damien. Good morning, Alejandra. To the Zoom. Good morning, Danny. Morning, Anna. Good morning. How are we?
Good morning.
Morning. Who is this? I can't quite. Is this Anna?
Anna.
Anna.
Yeah,
How are we?
we're doing pretty good.
Good.
Still alive.
Yes. Joseph, good morning. How are you? I see you up in the corner. Can you all see my screen that says Claude Debussy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Good. This system is far, I've tried it out a couple different times now, is far superior to the Blackboard Ultra, which was terrible last week. Of course, Miami-Dade College, we bought the cheap version, probably never expecting for anything like this to happen. So we'll be using Zoom. It works so much better. The video works. Even the video, it'll be a little clunky, but I'll be able to show you a couple videos today to just show you where it's at. The nice thing is it records our sessions automatically. So as soon as we're done with our session today, it will give me an automatic download. I can put it up tonight. So let's say your internet goes out, or one of you is sick, but you kind of want to listen in the background, but you want to have it, you will have access to these then throughout the rest of the term. Just a much better system. So later on today, we're training people on how to use this system as well. How's everybody doing? Because the other thing I like about this is I can actually hear your voices. If you click on and off of your mute button, we can talk in a couple different ways. So, and I like hearing your voices. So, how are we doing?
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Good. Joseph,
Good.
Joseph, your kids have
Yeah.
gone to online schooling, I would assume?
Yeah, they're doing online schooling. Actually, they're in spring break right now. Normally they would be in spring break, so this is considered spring break. So after that, then the online schooling will begin in a week from now.
Okay. Ernie, you get bonus points. You have the Starry Night in your background of your bedroom. That's my favorite artwork of all time.
Mm.
Ernie's connecting to audio, so he might have even heard my compliment. Dayon, how are you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm all right. And who else do I have here? I saw Damien is in. Oop, that's going to control different. So I still got to learn the controls. Hunter, how are we doing this morning?
Good, and you?
I'm doing well. What about financially? How are we doing? Have any of us lost our jobs or part-time, or we just shut down for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, pretty much.
My dad's struggling a bit.
Yeah, okay. Is it because his work slowed down or just canceled?
Something about like the stocks market crashing because that kind of took away from his like retirement.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the stock market is down almost 30%. And so we are hoping it will come back in the aftermath of all this. And generally it takes about 3 years to rebuild up. So as long as he doesn't have to pull the money out in the next 3 years, but if he's if he's getting close to retirement, it makes it much harder within this process. So I wish you guys luck.
Thank you.
Do you know if he's
really
within-
old, so.
Do you know if he's within 3 years of retirement?
Yeah, he was gonna like retire this year, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's an awful time for this to hit. Ironically, that happened to my father-in-law, and he ended up having to work for an extra 2 years in the last stock market crash. So he lost about 30% of his retirement savings, and then it did take 3 to 5 years to build up, but he was okay after 2 years. So I'm sorry, that's got to be tough, you know, with all the other emotional stressors that are showing up.
Thank you. It's all right.
Yeah. All right, shall we begin? Because they only give us, MDC is buying a subscription, so we'll be able to have our hour and 15-minute class. But today we want to kind of give you an overview, but also to work out on some of the technology as well. I thought today, rather than using the chat room, I thought it'd be interesting to try so I can actually see and hear you. If you want to click on and off of your microphone as I ask you a couple of questions as we're going through. I'm also, at the end of the day, I want to try to play a Kahoot. So if you have a cell phone right next to you, and Julie or whoever's coming on, if you want to turn on your speaker, just like everyone can hear the back feed then, that'd be awesome. I think I might be able to do that manually as well. So I would like to try a Kahoot internet later on today too, to see how that works. So I have one set up for Realism and Impressionism. So if I go to my first slide, did it transfer that quickly that you see the new slide right away?
Yeah, it was quite.
Yes.
All right, Julie, I'm not sure if that's you, so I'm going to put you on mute and see if that's actually the back feed we're getting. All right, so for anyone who wants to respond, as we talked about it last time, any impacts on having women involved in Impressionism? What happens?
We get a different perspective.
Okay, how? Keep going then, Joseph.
Well, I just think that they bring well, I mean, you don't want to stereotype, but, you know, maybe a kinder, gentler, more nurturing nature, just a different perspective. I think maybe just women just see the world slightly bit differently.
Okay.
I think they definitely embrace the beauty of the world more than men do. And maybe that translates in into their art.
Okay. First off, I think this is a good comment and an interesting point. We always are so worried about stereotyping, and yet we do it all the time. The problem is when we make stereotypes that are negative within a process, right? When you're walking down the street, we stereotype all the time, right? Is that person that I see a threat? Should I move to the other side of the road? Is that person or is that dog look like a vicious. We make these judgments. It's what our brain is hardwired to do. And during this time period, that's absolutely true. Remember, the Impressionists were the group that allowed women and wanted women to actively participate. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, it's exactly what Joseph was talking about. We start to see subjects that we have never seen before. Their landscapes aren't going to look any different, right? Maybe their color palette because they have better color vision. But when we start seeing interior visions or sisters playing on a piano by Renoir, we've never seen that before. So we're getting a more intimate look into the lives of what women have done, because men, unless you were the husband and really never thought about making your own family, ever thought that as the subject of high art. It wasn't worthy of high art. So the subject matter is going to change. Any other impacts for women on Impressionism?
I would say the use of color.
All right, is that Ernie?
They're allowed to be artists, no? Like to
All right.
join in.
What about the use of color? Ernie, if that was you?
Yes, since women can pick up color better than men, they have better ability to apply the paint on the canvas. Thus,
All right.
the Impressionist movement.
Perfect. So I think, and you can all hear Ernie when he chimes in then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Excellent. This is a much better system then. Good. Then it is. At least I can actually have some interaction with you. That's why I like to teach at a community college. I get to have the interaction versus anywhere else.
Yeah, that was really glitchy.
You what?
Yeah, the Blabber was really, really glitchy and very, very laggy that we couldn't even understand. Plus, the slides were getting stuck in one part.
They were awful. It was awful. And I'm telling my other art colleagues to scrap that system, even though we already paid for it from Miami-Dade College. Maybe it works for a different subject, but if you have it probably works if you're just lecturing and just talking about it, but it sucks it really did suck for any type of interaction, any high-res image. It was just a nightmare. But I want to build upon Ernie's comment. Ernie, you're exactly right. If you look at the color palette now, the Impressionists, the whole idea is to get the color right, but how your eye sees according to this image. Can anyone explain how this image, just looking at this image, what this image means? How you actually see? Anyone want to walk us through the process?
Well, of course, the light comes in through the retina and gets reflected into the back of the eyeball, and then gets processed through the optic nerve. And I believe there's more color receptors and with female eyes than there is with men eyes. So
10 times more.
possibly that translates into them being able to distinct what color they want to use and applying that applicably, though. I don't know. I mean, I saw some of the pictures that you had up on the previous slide, and does that necessarily translate into the art being better? I mean, you look at Raphael, I mean, I think he did, great job in representing, how the human image looks. I mean, yes, they have that physical capability, but does it really translate into the art looking different?
I would absolutely translate to the art looking different. I would be wary of the first comment you made. I'm hoping I did not make that comment, that the art is better. It's just more popular. I think that's what I made last time. More people like the artwork. It's just a simpler, easier artwork to look at. People call it more beautiful than a Raphael, and that's just by people, some who know art and some don't, who chime in. So I would not necessarily call it better. It's a different way of looking. Remember what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you see light as it happens. And so if you look at the image all the way on your right, that's past how we see. That's literally how your eye sees. I mean, if you look at it, there's no lines. It's just where does the color end? And then your brain adds the line in. So no matter where you look in your room, you're going to see lines. Your brain hardwires and locks that in. And we know this because people who have damage in their brains in particular areas don't see the lines. They actually see that fuzzy outline like Impressionism. So we know the Impressionists were getting it right. And let's face it, if you look at those dots and dashes, any idea what invention comes out of this?
The colorblind test.
All right, colorblind test is going to come out of this. If you don't know what that is, you can actually look up online. Anything else? Something you're probably using every day right now.
Photography?
Well, photography is actually earlier, but photography, color photography is going to be based upon this, right? In color photography, you don't have a million colors in the lab. You've got 3 or 4 that you mix to make these. But you're right, and color photography leads us to what you're using every day, most likely.
Digital photography, pixelation.
Digital. All right, TV. If you ever go to an old analog TV and you walk really close to the old analog TV,
Three colors.
you see 3 colors of light that blend together. If you get really close to the image on the right, they're basically inventing early on the very basics of photography, or I'm sorry, of television. And so if you look at our next image, and hopefully it'll pop up, this one popped up right away, right?
Mhm.
How is this one? This is called The Island of Langranjat. And I'll show you the title in a moment. How is this different than our Impressionist artwork?
I guess like instead of the marks being more expressive and kind of blotchy, this one's kind of more fine point.
Okay, good. Was that Dayon or was that Anna?
Damien.
Okay. As we're looking at that, Damien, then you're right. There's this splotchiness, this dots. And what does that mean in terms of how your eye interprets the line that's there, or the color that's there?
Wouldn't there be no lines technically?
All right.
And
There's
also-
no lines. Keep going.
It's smoother, it feels smoother and part of a whole, I guess.
All right. So you get this more holistic approach. You see how you look at it and you start really looking at figures rather than looking at just where color is placed?
Mhm.
That's what this is. This is called, if you look on the left-hand column, it says Post-Impressionism. Basically what Seurat wants to do, and the name of the artist up there in the upper left-hand corner, Seurat, what he wants to do, he sees there's 2 problems with Impressionism. Number 1, they didn't get optical theory right? They're just putting dashes of colors where they see them, but in any size, in any shape. He says that's not how your eye sees color. And he says, number 2, the problem is that Impressionism, the subject doesn't mean anything, so why do we care? So he wants to fix those 2 problems. And once we start fixing those problems, that's where we get to Post-Impressionism. So he says, what's this painting about, do you think? If he says the subject matters, why does this subject matter? Anyone take a stab? And you can have a moment to think about it. Why would this subject matter over Impressionism, which might be just haystacks or churches or waterways or water lilies?
I mean, is he really going to say that in Impressionism the subject matter doesn't matter? I mean, the impression, the sunset with Monet.
Yep.
It's the boat, but I mean that's very beautiful. I would not say. I mean, of course, this is people. Of course, people matter more than a boat in the lake. But
Okay.
I would not say that it necessarily doesn't. That it matters less.
Isn't
let me
this painting?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Isn't this painting like a critique to middle class society? That's where I heard it somewhere that
Mm.
the park was very popular, I think, and a lot of people will go there. So that's why they're showing the painter showing a lot of these people being social in the park.
Good.
And mhm.
Yeah, and going back to what Joseph said, so let's build upon those 2 comments. And was that Danny?
Yeah.
It doesn't line up, so I have to learn your voices as we're going through. I remember your voices. So one of the things that shows up is that, going back to Joseph, think about Joseph in your comment with the Impressionism sunrise. Would it matter if there was a boat in that picture or not? Would it matter if it was haystacks? Couldn't you just have just as beautiful a picture with haystacks?
Yeah.
So then the subject really doesn't matter. What matters is the style. Can you agree to that?
Yes.
All right. So in here, it matters not just, and you made the comment of people, and then building upon Danny, this is a critique because middle-class people that were working in factories, or the very poor middle-class people, when they went to a park, let's think about when you go to a park. Do you want to behave like the people in this painting? Is this your idea of a perfect park?
Not in Miami.
No. Why isn't this not a good park? Why
It's
don't
not
you go
perfect.
get it?
Nobody really seems to be socializing with each other, even though they're all kind of together.
All right, perfect. Number 1, talk about social distancing with coronavirus. These people, look at them. They are not interacting at all. It's as if they are zombies or as if they are their own individual people. Even the group of people, if you look in the middle ground on the back left, see that group of the woman, there's a dot, a white dot right next to a tree, and then this red scarf coming down, sitting next to Amanda with an umbrella. They're probably on a date. That date's not going particularly well. The people on the right, all the way in the foreground, the woman with the parasol and the man with the top hat, they're probably on a date or married with no they're out walking their monkey. That date is not going particularly well. It's as if they're isolated figures. And yet, Surratt was basically saying that, hey, this is how the upper class act. They have value. For those of you who've seen Downton Abbey, you know how formalized the world was. Or if you remember the video at Versailles where Marie Antoinette is getting dressed and how formulaic it is, that's what life was like for the upper class. And he said, he's basically trying to say, hey, you poor people or people that are the emerging poor, if you want the upper class to treat you like them, you've got to act like them. And so the question is, do you want to act like them? If you could live like Bill Gates, but you had to act like these people, would you want that lifestyle? Now that's hard because he's a billionaire, so maybe we're only looking at millionaires. But if you look at the people, or you look at the creatures, not just people, but the creatures that are doing things against society, they're all running or they're all at diagonal lines. Note how everything is flat and vertical or flat and horizontal. Note if you go back on the diagonal, see the little girl running in the red dress on the right-hand side in the middle ground? Note she's running at a diagonal. She's breaking the rules, whereas everyone is formulaic. Look at the dog all the way in the very beginning, that black dog right up front, it's at a diagonal, right? It's not prim and proper. And note the dog that's cutting off the monkey at the very bottom of the picture on the right-hand side. It's running at a diagonal. And note how prim and proper the monkey is, even with the dog running in front of it, right? Those are the people that are not behaving. That's the middle class. Do you want that kind of lifestyle when you go to a park? Because I kind of want to play Frisbee golf. I want to go hang out. I want to be with my friends. I don't want to live like this. And that's what he's asking. So he's trying to critique and provide with the same subject. I mean, these are people in nature, but he wants people to think about the world, say, is that really how you want to live? Is it worth living that way? And as he's doing it, this is basically even a more scientific study of light. And so Surratt himself believes that he is a color scientist. So if you look underneath the lovely color chart on the left, he called himself a color scientist rather than an artist. One of his best friends called him an artist. He went to the newspaper. His friend was a newspaper reporter. Said, hey, there's this great artwork by this new up-and-coming superstar named Georges Seurat. He went down to his newspaper, to his friend, and he beat the crap out of his friend for calling him an artist. He said, I am a color scientist. He wailed on him. He didn't want to be associated with the artist. He wanted to be associated with the color scientists. So an interesting thing you can do if you ever go to Chicago, in this painting, can you all see that blue panel on the right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
A little bit.
You need a little bit, okay.
Like Ferris Bueller.
I'm going to show you that one next because this is where it comes from. There you go. If we were in the classroom, one of the things I'd have you do is I would have you stand up, and you could try this with your computer now to see if it works. But I would have you stand up and move around the room until where you no longer see the dots. So just in your chair, or maybe you can back up, move back farther to where you no longer see the dots, where they actually all blend together and you just see color. Let me know when you're in that spot. You what?
Yeah. Do I put my glasses on?
That's completely up to you. It does not matter. I just need you to go to the place where you no longer see dots. Right?
So it doesn't matter if you have a problem looking for afar. Just
it does not matter right now.
Okay.
I wear glasses. I can do it either way. Without my glasses, my nose is on the camera. With my glasses, I'm about 5 feet back. So let me know when you find that spot where where you rock forward, you see dots, but when you rock backward, you just see color.
Okay.
Whatever distance you're at.
It looks smoother.
All right. So here's what I would like you to do, and think about this. This is supposed to be a science experiment. What Surratt wants you to do is as you rock back and forth between the two, you should get what's called a shimmering effect, where you see dots and then you no longer see dots. And the intensity of the light coming at you, your brain is tricking you, should be 20% brighter when you make that little nod with your head. See if it works for you. The color should actually get a little bit brighter as you rock back and forth, because your eye is adding intensity into the color.
Isn't that what they do in comics? That if you just add white dots, the color becomes lighter?
That's where they're going to steal it from him.
Okay.
So that's the whole point. It's the saturation of making shades, right, versus tints. And they're going to borrow it from him, Hector. I think that was Hector.
Yes.
Does it work is the question for all of you.
It does.
I kind of see it.
Then his color science was accurate. This is the invention of the modern television set. He's the guy who basically does it.
Even the water looks really, really shiny from afar.
Yeah. And if you didn't have to behave like these people, this is a gorgeous park to go to. Now, this is one of the most famous paintings, because if you get really close to this painting, these people break down. So see that image right in the middle with that little girl?
Mm-hmm.
That's what she actually looks like. Note, her eyes are not in the same facial register, i.e. Picasso's going to steal this. Her mouth is wide open. She really doesn't have a nose. And yet, if we go back to the larger scale painting, see that little girl right in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Your eye has drawn in all those lines. Here's what she really looks like.
She does have a nose, though. Like, you can see the dots from her nostrils.
There's not a nose. There's 2 dots for nostrils. Your eye draws everything else in. Look at that.
Okay.
This is how your eye actually works. See the difference? They figured it out. I should mention Seurat figured it out. That's a pretty interesting feature, because it's going to lead us to TV.
How long did it take him to make the painting?
4 years.
Oh, that's not
And
a...
it's 4 years.
And it has 4.5 million dots.
Jesus.
Because how do you know if your painting is working?
Because you have to look back. You have to
He
get
would
away.
have to, perfect. He would have to walk back to the spot where the color, the shimmering effect happens, and rock back and forth, and then, oh, I need 3 more dots of green, and then walk forward. Or I need 4 more dots of red. Like, he literally has to go through that process hundreds and hundreds of times a day in order for this to work.
So he did exercise.
Yeah, this man was in shape. And then he beat the crap out of his, that was his boxing match later on. The actual distance in the museum that you stand away to see the dots is 42 feet. So if you have 20/20 vision, and only if you have 20/20 vision, this is at the Art Institute of Chicago, if you stand 42 feet away, you'll see that effect happen.
Wow.
And to show you how close you can get, if you've never seen this movie, let's see how our movie plays. Here's Ferris Bueller. And I want to get close to where Cameron, the lead character, these are all the artists of Chicago. So imagine this. This is where I used to teach my art history 2 class. I could just walk them through. Those are 3 Picassos on the damn wall. How many Picassos are there in Miami? Yes, I'm serious.
Holy.
My wife dragged me here.
We are so sorry.
No, it's okay. You can yell at her later. So guess how many Picassos we have in Miami?
0.
0 is correct.
Oh,
They're all
wow.
in private collections. They don't generally like it when you show up at their house.
They should give them to me.
So there's our painting. There's the size of it. It's 14 feet wide. That's a Jewish painter named Marc Chagall we'll study next week. A Jewish cubist. Look how close they're going to get. Not that close. Now watch how her face breaks down here. Look, that's actually what the dots look like. So in order to get that effect, note, that's blue and white and pink. There's no pink there, and yet when you see it from a distance, so that's what the actual painting surface looks like. And yet when you walk back, you're like, holy crap, that's a painting. Not just a painting. When you walk back, it looks like that. So he basically has figured, he's invented color science. He took everything we knew from Da Vinci and finally figured out how your eye really works. And that's going to lead us basically to the modern day world of what we see. This is also one of the most spoofed paintings of all time. We have it from The Office, from our Japanese anime. I don't know what the hell the big bird is doing there, but all right, questions. Any questions we have on Surat? So I want to make sure today we talk about Van Gogh. Now, what do you already know about Van Gogh? One of the most famous artists of all time.
He suffered mental illness at the end of his life. He was very lonely. He
All right.
was very close to his brother Theo.
Okay.
He played a role in the government. I don't remember what or something like that. It was a very important position in his life. But he screwed up and he left. And what else? He wasn't not a mental asylum or anything, but I know he painted a lot of the paintings by the end of his life, but in his room.
Yes.
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
And he actually was in an insane asylum for a short period of time.
Oh,
But
wow.
yes, imagine this. You're a 32-year-old individual, maybe 30 years old. You're pretty successful at your job. You have a pretty good job in a banker, and you realize you're just not happy. You're going to give all of that up to try to become a struggling artist. He was able to do this. He didn't sell any of his work early on. No one wanted to buy his paintings, right? Because look at him. Like today we talk about them being beautiful, but those don't look like anything. Those don't look like realism. Those look literally like painting done by a child or by like a madman.
That's because you have expectations from the old times.
You're exactly right. That's the whole
what a lot
point.
of people overlook nowadays.
And I think that's the whole point of art that we want you guys to think about. As you're taking your art classes, you might get pissed off when Jen Basile says, make it more realistically. Or when Yomari Silva in our sculpture class talks about how you have to get the shading right, even on the cardboard or on the plaster with that positive and negative space. Because ultimately the role of the artist is this. You learn the rules of art and then you go and break them.
Mhm.
Creativity is what drives the human condition forward. And so I think that's one of the interesting processes that shows up is that, yes, you get frustrated sometimes with us because, you know, that's not what you want to look at. And yet that's the cost of admission into the art world is realism. Once you learn that and master that, look at Van Gogh, you can break all of them. Van Gogh is a weird artist then for one reason. He was never classically trained. And so he's breaking the rules haphazardly as he's learning how to paint. But no, he's a starving artist all the way to the end. What freaks Van Gogh out at the very end of his life before he commits suicide, and he does commit suicide at the age of 37, is that he was just becoming popular. It freaked him out that other people wanted to see how he saw the world. And that's when he decided to take his life. He was on the verge of becoming a hero artist and lost all of it just because his own mental health couldn't allow him. He's almost always working on his own. And the only reason he was only able to survive and develop this art at all is because his brother Theo was actually providing him the funds because he was a lawyer and very successful. He does enough to decide. The picture of Van Gogh's boots. Those are the boots he painted a lot of his artworks on. I apologize, my dog's in the backyard now. $70 million a pair of boots. And out of all the Van Goghs that happen to be in the world, that's Yomari Silva, if you know our sculpture professor.
Pretty sure the call is calling off for me. I don't know if it's my internet.
The audio's off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the audio is breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, it's not me.
Oh, okay. Let me try to sit a little closer and see if that helps. So let me show you. The painting on the left. Can all of you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. The painting on the left then is Auver's Church. That is the church where Van Gogh used to work. If you don't know, Van Gogh early on in his life was trying to become a pastor. So he was highly Christian, at least early on in his life. He failed the exam. And part of the reason that he failed the exam is he was having psychotic episodes. Van Gogh was actually having delusions. And he could not figure out how these delusions played in with the Christian world. And so he was constantly going back and forth between depression, delusions. When he went through these delusions, he used alcohol and eventually becomes an alcoholic. And he used tobacco as a food. So he literally would chew the tobacco and then swallow the tobacco It's all he could afford because tobacco back then was very cheap. He asked the woman to marry him, and if you look right down the middle, she responds not with no, no thanks, maybe later, I'm not ready. She says never. That's got to be harsh. He's dating a prostitute girlfriend. She ends up committing suicide. And when he's working in that Auvers church, the most important thing about Van Gogh, as he's working in that Auvers church, one of the things that happens, there's a mining accident in Auvers, in that town, where he's working. And he turns away from God because he cannot understand how God could allow this town to lose 1/4 of their men underground, buried alive, never to be found again in one day. When he does that, his family says, oh, he's gone off the limit. So they do not put him in an insane asylum for his psychotic episodes. They don't put him in for delusion. They don't put him away for depression. His family actually has him interned in a mental institution where he's going to make his most famous artwork, Starry Night, because he becomes non-Christian. He becomes an atheist, and that terrifies them. Up until 1910, you could put your family members in institutions for such things as being non-Christian all over the Christian world. There's a really good Angelina Jolie movie out about this. And so that, what you're looking at is Van Gogh's bedroom. On the right is his picture. On the left is a museum recreation. When Van Gogh goes to shoot himself, and he does shoot himself eventually, when he shoots himself, he actually misses all his vital organs. He misses his heart. And so it takes him about 36 hours to bleed out in that bed. So that would have been the bed he committed suicide in. He woke up, got himself drunk so he didn't feel the pain, passed out again. And while he's in the insane asylum then is when he starts painting this. And you remember from art,
still exist?
You what?
Does that building still exist?
That building does still exist. That's Auvers Church. That's one of the churches in that little tiny town.
No, is the bedroom.
No, that's a recreation. So it is traveling. It's a museum exhibit now.
Okay.
And it's small. It's 8 feet by 10 feet. It's tiny. I've been in it.
Fraser, so the black figure in the Starry Night painting, that is supposed to be the church, or is that something else?
That black figure, note how it's about the same shape as the church as it reaches towards the sky. It's actually a tree. It's a cypress tree. It's a cypress tree, which is what the Greeks and the Romans in classical art used to plant in graveyards. So on some level, there's a parallel, right? If you look at the church, note how the church lights are not on. The church is not there. It's kind of like death. And so one of the comments that, let me go down a couple I've got here.
Professor, I got a question.
Shoot.
Okay, you said this in Art History 1 that the church lights are off, and that indicates, his separation from the church, his lost faith. But it's nighttime, and the church, of course, would be lit up by candles. If there's nobody there, why would they have candles burning in a church that nobody is at? Wouldn't that, even back then, they would recognize the fire hazard of that.
No, churches are always lit 24 hours a day. The whole point of a church is that a community church should be open 24 hours a day. Why? People die at night. People need help at night. They're supposed to be staffed 24 hours a day. Any Roman Catholic church around the world is supposed to be staffed 24 hours a day. We only made that change in about 1960 because of the finance. Remember, this is the most well-funded. And so the fact that the church is not open in 1890 is a big deal.
Richard, didn't he shoot himself in a field, or did he shoot himself in the bedroom?
He shot himself in a field, thought he would die in the field next to one of his paintings. We think, this is the best evidence we have, walked home bleeding blood to that bedroom, lied down, assumed he would die the next day, and it took him the better part of another 24 hours bleeding out to eventually bleed out and die. So yes, he does shoot himself in the field. And he did not bring the gun home. That's why we think we shot, because we did find the gun. The gun is on display at the Van Gogh Museum.
Oh, wow.
And so here, the quote he says is, just as we take a train to reach Paris, we take death to reach a star. And that is the window where he started painting Starry Night. So that is the view he would have had when he starts blocking out the figures. Then he learned to play the game. He does not finish it in the insane asylum. He actually gets better, or well, I shouldn't say better. He tricks the people, telling them that he's no longer an atheist, and they let him out because you can't hold someone who says they're no longer an atheist for being an atheist in an insane asylum. And so then he goes and commits suicide about 6 months later.
Okay, so he did not die in the insane asylum. He died at home.
That is correct. In that
Okay.
small, tiny little bedroom.
And that actual house, that bedroom they died in, doesn't exist anymore?
It does not. Yeah, we only have it from basically reconstructing what it looked like from before. There it is. From that image right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best representation we have. Note in his picture, though, see how everything kind of crowds in? It's almost like the world is coming. See the way the picture hangs almost over him rather than being on a flat wall? It's like he's in this confined world. And also look at the green and the red on the cushions of the chair, those complementary colors, right? You see the green on the chair. That just doesn't exist. It's that brown color. It's like there's this weird ooziness that something bad is going to happen here.
Right,
And
sure.
that is basically what he's trying to depict. It's expressionism. I'll get your question 1 second, Hector. I think it's Hector. Expressionism is the whole idea of you're going to distort reality to try to make an emotional impact on the artist or on the art viewer. I question, what's your Hector? What's your question?
Is there a particular reason why the painting in the back is changed?
The painting in where?
Like right on top of the bed?
I do not know. That is a different landscape painting. You are correct. It might be that we don't have access to that painting anymore because the other paintings appear, even his self-portrait painting is different, right? His self-portrait painting in his own bedroom is of him as an older man. And then the one on the right is still a self-portrait, but him as a younger man. So I don't know. It might be that museum collections didn't want to allow that particular one to travel in the exhibit, right? Because each Van Gogh is worth $70 million. If you've only got one Van Gogh and people come to see Van Gogh, why would you ever let it out of your museum? Sometimes that actually happens.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly what the story is behind that. So if you look at Starry Night, Van Gogh made 2 Starry Nights. The one on the left is his first one. What's the difference between the two?
It's a little bit more realistic on the left. Just a tiny
Right, the
bit.
one on the left is way more realistic.
I can tell from on the left that he was actually outside, and then for the one on the right, he actually was behind the window.
All right, so there's this confinement aspect that shows up.
Paint strokes as well.
It's what?
The paint strokes.
All right, the paint. What's different? What's happened?
You have a little bit more blockiness on the left, while you have a lot more flowiness on the right.
All right, the one on the right or the one on the left, then you would say looks more like what other art movement?
Cubism, I think is the name.
Not quite Cubism. It's more impressionist. If you look at
Yep.
that one on the left, the strokes are very impressionist. There's a dab. Look at the color. There's yellows and blues and pinks. The one on the right, he really is using the brushwork for expression to show his depression, his anger, whatever emotion he's feeling. He never writes about it, so we can't give you a definitive answer, except he's probably feeling both because his family basically put him in a place. And if you know about 19th century insane asylums, it was basically torture. So it was terrible. This is one of the most spoofed artworks on the planet. People wear dresses on it. The one on the left, you know, Darth Vader looking up at the Death Star being the moon. The one below is my favorite, but beneath that is that, and if you can't see it, it's actually the Batman logo. So the church is closed, but they need Batman to help them. So they're calling for Batman. He's famous for doing self-portraits, and that's largely, he didn't have any money to pay a sitter. And so he pays a fair amount for those self-portraits. And I'll show you some of the self-portraits. If I click on here, let's hope it pops on for you.
Oh,
Those are all his different aspects of self-portraits. So he does a number of them, and his most famous one is the one all the way on the right, which is where he cut off a tiny piece of his ear. We often talk about him cutting off his ear. He did not. He cut off a little piece of the lobe. Still, it's a piece of his body he cut off, so he's not going to bleed that much. But he over-exaggerates it, and he does that after he has a fight with his best friend who he's living with, a man named Gogh. Gauguin runs off to Tahiti, never to come back. Van Gogh, I'll stop that so we don't get sick.
Richard, one more question.
Shoot.
We talked about Van Gogh not being able to afford basically anything.
Yes.
How did he paint?
His brother Theo is sending him enough money. And that's why he's buying the best grade paint he can afford and saving everything, even tiny little tubes. And he's basically eating alcohol and tobacco.
Okay.
That basically is how he survives like that for the better part of 3 years.
Fraser, I also heard that he was so broke that he ate oil paint.
I cannot verify that. I've heard that story too. I don't know if it's true as well. I do know he's eating when he goes to the wheat field or the haystack. There's all sorts of stories of him actually just eating the hay. Right? He was so concentrated to become a great artist, he gave up everything else, and basically it costs him his life.
I mean, he did.
And today he's one of the most revered hero artists. But one of the interesting things to think about Van Gogh is in the modern day world, we would put him on meds. If you put Van Gogh on meds, do you get the outpouring? You know, if you put Van Gogh on meds, do you actually ever get this image? One of the most famous images and my favorite image in the world is on the right.
No.
I think you would actually. I don't know, coming from experience, one of my best friends, he suffers from like depression.
Yeah.
And he makes amazing art, but the thing is that when he got on meds, he was still able to continue the art, but nothing was really holding him back. You know, he was able to
But it's
control.
not the same though. It's really not.
What do you mean he's really not?
No, that is not the same. Like once under your meds and once you're not. Like when you're not under meds, it's your mind working. Doesn't matter how it is. When you're under meds, like your perception of reality gets distorted by one way or another.
Yeah.
And so it could be that he stayed more in the Impressionist phase and we never moved to Expressionism. Or it could be that he had enough self-control. You know, he was older, so it's not like a 19-year-old, 20. He was 35 and 36 was this happened. So it could be that he had a little bit more self-control to remember. We'll never know the answer. But that is something when we over-medicate people today, are we literally taking the creativity out of them because they see the world differently, right? Just because they see the world differently today doesn't mean they're wrong. It might just mean that it's not the normal rational thing that we want to see. But people who have been outside of society, the hero struggling artist, those are the people that make great changes. I mean, look at Lewis Carroll. There is no way he writes Alice in Wonderland if he's not high as a kite. Go read about Cheshire Cat. There is no way that story happens unless you're high.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there is a creativity problem that shows up. Now, I want to show you this video. If you've never heard this is called Loving Vincent. It's available. I would highly recommend at some point watching it. This is the first, particularly for those of you interested in animation. This is a story of Vincent van Gogh's life, and it's the first fully painted film. So here's the trailer. We'll try to play it in a large scale format for you. But it's beautifully drawn. Can all of you still see the trailer?
Yes.
Good. Look at how they animated his work. And a lot of these are actual Van Gogh drawings or paintings.
Vincent van Gogh killed himself. How does a man
So these are all Van Gogh paintings.
suicidal in 6 weeks? Vincent left this letter. Theo Van Gogh. That's Vincent's brother, isn't it? I don't see the point in delivering a dead man's letter. So, if you had died and there was a letter out there that you had sent to me, I would want it.
So, what brings you to all that?
I want to do something for Vincent.
You're not going to stir things up again, are you? I've had quite enough weeping over that bookcase.
His neighbours and the police and the whole town against an ill man. Vincent, what have you done?
Remember, back then they used to make fun of people that had mental illness.
If only I could have been one of them. Great artists are not peaceful souls. No, that is the price of your path. Is it worth it? Did he change his mind? Did he want to live after all?
You want to know so much about his death. What do you know of his life?
What did you do for him? I would like to show by my work what this nobody has in his heart. Your loving Vincent.
So if you have not seen that trailer or that movie, it's commercially available now. I would highly recommend, particularly if you're in animation, it's a new style of animation, really animating someone else's work, but they're trying to tell the story of their life. They're working on one right now for Edvard Munch, the artist of the screen. So it's kind of a pretty, yeah.
It looks beautiful, but it looks nauseating at the same time.
It does take some time to get used to. I mean, it does, because everything on the screen is constantly moving, and it's moving in the swirl-like pattern that Vincent van Gogh drew in, so you don't get too many stationary images in an hour and 50-minute movie.
That's a very expensive animation as well, they said, because it's like along with the movement with the actors and drawing on them. That's a very expensive form of animation, if I recall.
Oh, yes, because this is 3 levels of animation, right? There's a background,
It took like 4
underground.
years to make it.
Yeah, it takes 4 years, and it took about 80 different animators to work on it at the same time.
Yeah, it's really, it's a very long one.
So if you ever want to go as Van Gogh for Halloween, well, it's been done before. Terrible Van Gogh jokes, but I promise you I have to give you some lightning.
There's a film with William Dafoe called At Eternity's Gate, where it's a biopic on like the last 3 months of Vincent van Gogh's life.
I didn't think that one was particularly good. Did you like that?
It was all right, but I really loved William Dafoe's interpretation of Van Gogh.
Yeah, the one that I would recommend is Crows. So if you want to see it, go down. Crows is from a movie called Dreams, and Vincent van Gogh here is actually played by Martin Scorsese.
Oh, cool.
So if I show you this to you, I'll show you just a piece of it. But you can see there in the early parts, they just make fun of him. And the first part is in French. It's by one of the most famous Japanese directors of all time, Akira Kurosawa. And if we go to, so here's Van Gogh talking to Kurosawa about art. See, that's Martin Scorsese.
It's so difficult to hold it inside.
So these are all original quotes that we know that Van Gogh wrote about in this particular scene. It's 13 minutes long.
I work, I slave, I drive myself like a locomotive.
And then Van Gogh is going to run off, and Kurosawa is going to follow him through his paintings. There we go. Through his paintings and his drawings. This was early animations from the 80s. This is the best they could do. But still, I would pay money to be able to walk through a Van Gogh like that. The reason I like this clip, or this one that I wasn't going to show you, but in terms of kind of looking at Van Gogh's life, is that all of the quotes that Van Gogh says are his actual quotes about his artwork. So it's tied directly in. And let me ask you, how choppy is that? Is that pretty good, actually, on Zoom?
A bit choppy.
It's pretty good, yeah.
It's fine.
It was fun.
But it's fine to use versus the other place. Remember, we couldn't even get it on.
Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah.
It's way better. The whole system is way better. It's fun to hear your voices, too. Like, there's an energy kick about that versus just reading to all your little things while I'm talking. Hey, Fraser, what about this? It's much nicer to just have interaction.
The other one's just depressing.
I'm sorry, I'm depressing you.
No, it was
It
so
wouldn't be a
quiet.
class.
It was really quiet.
Class without depression.
Fraser, can I just ask something about Van Gogh's ear? I heard that he gave up at least a part of the ear to a prostitute. That's
a myth. It's a myth. Okay, so it could be true. There is no evidence at all that supports that theory. We don't even know where the story came from. So there's no historical evidence for that at all. There's no police report. We don't know the name of the prostitute. His other prostitute girlfriend, Sian, had already committed suicide. So we cannot verify that at all. So I would call that a myth only because we have no evidence to back it up, though it could be true. We just can't prove it.
Okay.
Didn't he tell the prostitute, well, this is according to the myth, that he wanted to give the ear to Paul Gauguin, like his friend? Because after the argument they had, Gauguin left and then he cut off his ear.
That is absolutely, so Gauguin goes off to Tahiti. Van Gogh cuts off a part of his ear, which has led a lot of scholars to say that, well, maybe Van Gogh is gay. When's the last time you had a fight with your friend where you cut off a piece of your ear and your other friend runs to another part of the foreign world, Antarctica, and you never see from them again? That sounds more like a deep lover's vow than just being friends. And we have no evidence to prove one way or the other. So, Ernie, I can't verify that or deny that either.
I mean, well, he was a very lonely man. So I guess since Paul Gauguin was like his first art friend, I guess that's why he had like such a deep desperation to be around him. So,
and Paul Gauguin was an established artist already. Like, he was well known. Van Gogh was not.
Yeah. And I guess Gauguin was always trying to tell Van Gogh how to paint like in a certain way. And I guess that's where like their art styles differentiate between that. I guess maybe they're really good friends, but two different artists.
Yep, that is correct. Oh, that's correct. Yep. And so the other expressionist artwork that you all know is this one. What's the point of this artwork?
To disturb you.
It is disturbing.
I heard it's a representation of the soul, of the human soul.
How? Can you walk me through more of that, Ernie? Because I've heard that as well.
It shows emotion within the actual screen, and plus it's also meant to be looking right at you, and also the blood in the sky.
All right.
The artist was in a very, I would say, depressive state, but also a very like sick and ill state. So he wanted to represent how he felt in the time and also society in the time. This is just a piece of the painting. I know there's like two other ones I incorporated with this one, right?
This is the whole painting that shows up with the screen it has. This is the size of the canvas that he had. There are other versions of this, but the one on the left is the one that's the most famous. In fact, if we go down, can you see all four?
Yes.
Oh.
There's four of them.
It's a
right? It was a subject he kept coming back. And note, the people in the background, they're humanoid. And so here's the issue. That first one, note, it was the first one he ever made was crayon on cardboard. So if someone ever tells you, no matter how impoverished you are, you can't find art materials, you can do it. That artwork that's crayon on cardboard is now worth $70 million.
I can't see it. No, never mind. Hold up. I can move the
You can't
screen.
find number 4?
Never mind.
No, you just have to move it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to scroll over because we have different size screens. So there's that 18, that one's worth $70 million. The one all the way on the left that we just looked at just sold for $180 million. And the two in the middle are owned by the Munch Museum. So there were 4 different versions. Remember, that's just crayon on cardboard. It's all he could afford. Next week, when we talk about Picasso, I'm going to show you an artwork that has 3 other Picassos underneath it because he couldn't sell them. No one wanted his depressing-ass blue period paintings, so they just skipped over it. And this is the most parodied artwork in world history right now. Even though, note the screen, that actual screen that launched the horror series, it's a takeoff of this.
Oh.
All right. And then spoofs. American Gothic. This one's a pretty good one, right? Because nature was out of control. We had the Dust Bowl. We had all sorts of things that are going on. And then the other thing I want to throw out, if any of you are thinking in like both psychology and art, there's a job called art therapy that's out there.
Oh.
So the starting salary in a hospital is about $45,000, and so the starting range of salaries is $45,000 to $80,000. It's a master's. It's called an MAT, a Master's of Art Therapy. It's actually a pretty good job because you get to work with individuals that are struggling, and you're using art. This is the same way we use music therapy, but that is a real legitimate career. I actually thought about going into that at one point.
Oh.
All right, and that one I'll skip that for next time. So, do you have any questions?
No.
No.
Do you have your cell phone in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Maybe.
Let's try. Let me get out of this. I'm going to go. Let's try to play Kahoot.
For real?
Let's see how we do online. This will be a Kahoot then that's going to test your knowledge. Let's see if we can get on it. That's Zoom. All right, where's Kahoot? There must be a Kahoot here. Let me try to share a different screen. That's my Zoom screen. Because if we can play Kahoot. All right. I'll give you a number unless you can see the number that pops up here. Can any of you see the number?
I don't.
I can't either, so.
I can see it.
Come on. All right. Realism and Impressionism games. I'm going to put it up. Give me a second. I've just paused my screen. We'll play classic. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you see the PIN number?
No.
All right. Well, here's the PIN number then. It's 581 7970. 581 7970.
Can you repeat again, please?
581 7970. One more time. 581 7970. Morning, Sam. I didn't see you before. Oh, good morning, Stephanie, as well. I didn't see you or hear from you earlier. All right, who the hell's Big Chungus? All right, about another 5 seconds. Again, that number is 581 7970. And we're going to start. Here we go.
Who's speaking?
Wait, Fraser, how are we gonna play if we can't see
Yeah,
the
I
screen?
can't see the questions.
Exactly.
Oh, it's not popping up.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, let me try this. This is why I said we're trying to work out. Let me see if I can't get on Zoom. Are you seeing it now?
Nope.
No.
Are you seeing the Rodin right now?
Oh my
Yes.
god, like it gives me anxiety
let's try
watching this.
that.
'Cause I know exactly what happened that day.
All right, let's see. There's all of us. I'm trying to see, there should be a way. Let's try a different screen share. Crap. Okay, I can't find a way of loading it up. I will have to do some more Google searching. We know the video and everything else worked. It's not coming up, so I wonder if I have to have a separate screen in a different server. All right, I'll have to try to figure that out. We'll play next time then. I apologize for not being able to give you your lovely Kahoot game.
It's okay, Fraser.
If we have any outstanding issues, so we're going to meet like this. We'll see you next Tuesday. We'll start right on time next Tuesday at 9:50. We'll be talking about cubism. So if you've already done the cubism work from week 11, you're done. It's just a matter of so the week 11 work will now be week 13 work. The week 12 work, which is on Dada and Surrealism, will be week 14. And I just eliminated the last 2 weeks. The only other thing that kind of really or two things, the semester-long project, you're only going to do one of the museum entries. Unless your group really wants to do more than one, you're more than welcome. But I'm only going to grade one as part of your grade as we move forward.
Okay.
So any outstanding issues or anything we should talk about before we let each other go on to whatever we're doing for the rest of the day?
How do you want the work to be submitted? Just email it to you?
Which work are we talking about, Joseph?
The notes for the weeks, the coming
We'll put
weeks.
them up on discussion board. So in week 13, There's a discussion board now for Cubism. But Joseph, I already got yours because you sent them to me by email, so I've already uploaded the grades that I have. And week 14 was on pop art. So next week, that stuff, everything is live now. You could go on week 13 or 14. It's just week 11 just got moved. I just changed the name to week 13.
Okay.
Sure.
Everything else. And later on today, I will upload this as soon as we hang up. This will give me a download file. And if you're interested in going back and learn more about Van Gogh, that will show up as well. We just lost Kahoot. Other questions?
Okay, I just want you just answer that you were going to upload this, or is because I was a little bit
Yeah, this will get uploaded later on, actually, probably by tonight. I have to wait for the download to come to my computer. Then I'm just going to upload them so you'll always have access to our lectures, because you never know. I mean, internet goes out, you just wake up sick. Like, we want to make it as flexible as possible. So you have 2 different ways of accessing it.
Thank you very much.
What about the quizzes, by the way?
Quizzes will start up again next week. The first quiz that you'll be able to do is on Realism and Impressionism. And then
that's the one.
Unless you've already done that one, because we've already done the reading and everything. The one that will be new next week will be on Cubism, because we'll talk about Cubism. Oh, I will mention, I have most of you online. Make sure you have a piece of paper, because you're going to do a drawing activity that we'll be sharing, because most of you have video access. So you show me a picture of what you're doing. But I'm going to teach you how to do a cubist drawing, and I'll put this in the email that I send you out about next week's work, because I want to see you do a drawing in cubist style. I'm going to teach you how to do that.
That's great.
Nice.
Fraser, for the semester
Yes, Hector, what do you got?
For the semester-long project,
Yes.
I already gave you my paper, but
Then you're done. As long as I have yours, I'm uploading all those grades today and tomorrow. I'm still training a bunch of other faculty, so I apologize. But I've been working with about 100 other faculty, trying to get them online, because a lot of them have no idea how to do anything in Blackboard. So it's been a struggle.
So we can submit the semester-long project now?
Whenever you want, as soon as you're done.
Okay.
Yeah. And I only need 1 entry. Just make sure that that entry has the perspective of why would students care? I mean, really, that's what makes it new and unique. And I wore Starry Night for you today.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
So the
Oh, that
next
was so
quiz
nice.
is going to be quiz 10 that we didn't have to do?
No, quiz 10 you should. Well, okay, here's the weird thing. We close on Thursday. Quiz 10 was due by Sunday at midnight. So as soon as we open up, you can go and take that whenever you want. So quiz 10 is on Realism and Impressionism. Quiz 11, which will now be on Cubism, will be due when we open up and start doing Cubism. So you can take quiz 10 whenever you want. It was in that
I was really
weird
confused about
strange
quiz 10,
field.
that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. Since
So
we
it's
didn't
not late right now because we're closed. So you'll do that as well as quiz on Cubism sometime next week, or do them whenever you want. But it's good. They got to be in by next week.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because we're closed, so I can't require you to do any work right now. I can only encourage you, hey, stay ahead, because I don't. Unless you have your other professors reached out to you.
Yes.
No.
Just once.
Just one. I apologize. We're all supposed to be reaching out. I apologize about that. Some of them, if you're in sculpture, has Yomari reached out?
Yes, she did. I mean, when I didn't say just one, just once. So
Okay.
it is a little bit confusing with that
Yeah,
word.
she's struggling with technology. You probably already know it's not her specialty. And number two, how are you going to do sculpture online? That's a hard class to figure out. The rest of them should be reaching out for you. So if you have time, do some of my work now in case they just push all their work together. You don't want to get crushed in the last month.
So far, figure drawing hasn't said anything either.
Okay. I hope it's coming. I'm still working with a number of our art faculty to even get their classes. Like Tony Chirinos, our photography professor, has never used Blackboard before, so we're even working on his grade book later on today to get all the grades up. So there's a lot of people that are behind the curve.
A lot.
Pretty sure I have a class that hasn't said anything about the online classes, like, at all.
It's got to be coming sometime this week.
This
So
week
again,
they
I
did.
apologize. So here's the thing. You can use me as your vent later on. I can't do anything until next Monday. But if you have not heard from a class, particularly an art class by Monday, please let me know and I'll follow up with our chair. It's not going to get the person in trouble, but we want to make sure they're actually using Blackboard or some other online management, because otherwise how are we going to teach you? So on Monday, if you do have that problem, I'm more than happy to go to my chair and say, hey, we're having some problems with, because it might be a technology issue.
It is a technology issue because, sorry, my professor Eduardo Rosas was trying to get us to get our assignments in the Blackboard, but he couldn't get it, I think, accepted. I still had the email, so he tried to update us to get our assignments online, but he's trying, so there was no success attempts. He started last week, that's why.
Okay, but at least we know that person is trying, right? The people that scare me are those individuals that haven't heard anything, and we get to Monday, we're like, all right, we're supposed to go live. We were supposed to have 2 weeks to prep, and even this week we're supposed to be piloting with our students. So they should be reaching out to you. Steph, do you have a question? No, now I'm back to Anna. The yellow ball keeps bouncing. No, are we done?
Yeah.
Have a lovely day. You have a week to get your stuff together. If you do run into technology needs, please let me know. Miami-Dade College is trying to help you. Like, if your computer somehow gets infected with a virus or something, if you need a laptop, there might be workarounds around those as well. We're still trying to figure all that out. So if that is you, or if you know that's someone that's not on our call, by all means, please let me know. We'll try to work those out as well.
Fraser, do you know if the computer lab will be open? Because I
Nothing
still need.
will be open.
No.
No, you're not allowed on campus. I'm not allowed on campus.
So what do we do about, you know how we have the graduation requirement about the computer test?
All of that stuff there. Well, we don't know what's going on with graduation.
Okay.
I will ask the question then of our. I will ask the question of our academic dean. So if you could put that in an email for me, I will follow up. Our academic dean is David DiMatteo. This is going to be a rough time for many. So if you have questions like that, please let me know, and I will forward them out to the responsible party to try to get you answers. They won't be, those answers will not come back shortly because they're working on just trying to get the entire system up. But at least we know those questions are getting vetted in the appropriate circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Steph, what do you got?
That was me. That was my question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Get out of here. Have a lovely day. Please take care of yourselves. Social isolation. Let's not get anyone else sick. And I hope all of you are doing well, both mentally, because it's hard to be locked up, particularly, hopefully, most of you are in good situations with your family. And also just financially. I hope we're not running into, is anyone trying anything new? My last question. Like, anyone go on a workout plan now? Anyone cooking a lot?
I've been playing Animal Crossing all weekend.
All right, so you guys have gone internet video game crazy. Netflix stocks are up.
I recover some sleep. That's what I know.
Okay, sleeping is good too. All right, bye guys. Have a good day.
Bye, Fraser. We love you.
Watch your cell phone.